that I'm a comedian. I want to make sure I get you somebody good. So I don't want to just reference a publicist if they're not like focused on cool comedians.
No, it's all good. The folks I'm working with super talented, man. Got a great community building. So yeah, man, it's fun and exciting again. So it'll take a second or two. What'd you say?
What's going on with your podcast? Is it happening?
Yeah, the podcast happens every week. You know, we record it every Thursday, drop it every Monday. So yeah, the podcast is going well.
Not with Hop though.
What's that?
Not with Hop. Not with Hop.
Oh no, not yet. No, that's still, you know, things just take extra long. So all right, looks like we got people popping in here. A6 Giddy, I think, on Twitch. What's going on? I'll wait another second or two for some more folks to come in because we got a super dope guest today. I mean, we always have super dope guests, but today we got somebody with very interesting experience. So I'm excited to have this conversation. And as always, you guys will be able to ask your questions probably in about 30 minutes. So let's see who we got. Shane, what up, man? KP Bot, what's going on? Dope. If you guys get an opportunity, if you want to share the link to this stream on your own platforms, that would be awesome. I know I sent out the text. We've been getting pretty good traction on the highlights that we post on Instagram. So I'll have to pick out a few of your gems, Jesse, to repost, as I'm sure you'll have quite a few of them.
I would look. This all started because I sent a tweet out that basically said it's a hard time to be indie, and you jumped all over that. So I think that we're gonna have a lot of good conversation about the state of indie in various industries right now.
Yeah, no, we could definitely talk about that. That would actually be a better conversation for the podcast. We could talk about it here, but the podcast I think would be awesome. So maybe we follow up and have that conversation on the podcast as well. Because there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about, you know, in your background and some of the things that you're doing, that you've done in the past and that you're currently doing. But let's go ahead and just get started with a quick intro into, you know, Jesse, who you are and kind of like what you do. And you know, you can go into the history a bit, but, you know, maybe give us the short version because you've done so much stuff.
Awesome. You're driving, so I'll just follow your lead and basically here to answer whatever questions and whatever you want me to do and say. In terms of my background and who I am, my name is obviously Jesse K, and I come from the agency world, originally in finding and developing talent. So I got my basically cut my teeth very early on. When I was 22, I signed Clips as their booking agent and toured that group right out of college. I took the indie route and skipped the mail room and skipped the agency world and worked at a boutique and was able to try, you know, my boss at the time was like, go sign acts. If you don't want to be an assistant, go be an agent. You can sign artists now if you can find them and they'll go with you. And I tried to sign a bunch of acts. I tried to sign the Yang Twins. I tried to sign Sean Paul, but ultimately Clips agreed to let me represent them if I could help turn their grinding street tour around. And it was a hot mess, and I was able to work with my team and reroute the tour, and they signed with me, and I ended up being the Clips' agent, and then all of a sudden Grinded started to really take off, and the album went #2 on the pop charts, and you know, learned a lot about the booking business in my early 20s. Then I moved out to California, where I'm at right now, actually, during this kind of nomadic pandemic era. But I moved to California and worked in the video game space and worked for a startup and really learned kind of the digital media side of things as that was exploding, and got a firsthand account to working in a video game company running entertainment marketing. And then I moved back to New York and started Nue Agency, which is my company now. And for the first 6 years, I've had this company for 13 years. But for the first 6 years or so, I was representing talent, and I was kind of looking at things differently and trying to be a new wave agent in markets that weren't kind of like hot right at the bigger agencies, and trying to kind of outmaneuver them in certain sectors like the college market or the tech world, where I thought I could add value to clients that the bigger agencies weren't looking at in the same kind of way. And had some success there. First act I signed when I started Nue Agency was Mims. He had that song, "This Is Why I'm Hot." It went #1 on the pop charts. From there, I was working at a DigiWax, basically on a couch in the back of DigiWax. The CEO, CL, was an amazing guy, and they got a great company. It was a friend of mine, is a good friend of mine, and offered me an opportunity to kind of work with him on Mims and work out of his couch at DigiWax. And from there, I was able to sign an artist named Wale, who I started working with. I met him on MySpace. I met his manager on Friendster at the time, and then started working with Wale. This is before Mark Ronson, before Rick Ross, before Jay-Z, before all of that. And we toured and did some amazing stuff early on in his career. I was his agent for about 5 years. And then he introduced me to J. Cole, and I was J. Cole's agent during the warm-up in the early days of his career. And then I was representing Mike Posner, who introduced me to Big Sean, who I was also representing. And at one point, I worked with you, obviously, through an agent in my company, who I met and with Hobson and with Dizzy. And so I was a boutique agent. We were Logic's first agent of record, White Panda, Capital Cities, Action Bronson. So we were a boutique talent agency that was representing artists. And about 7 years ago, completely changed the business model to representing brands. And where I think it's a lot more creative, or at least a lot more opportunity to kind of shine in terms of the creative and to kind of flex my ability to be as big as my ideas. As an agent, you're really behind the scenes and empowering artists to do their mission. And as what we sit right now, it's a lot more entrepreneurial. It's a lot more, I feel like, creative. It's a lot less monotonous. And I sleep a lot better at night not representing artists. So it's a culture marketing agency. It's called Nue Agency. We work with big brands. We work with emerging brands. We help them connect to culture by making meaningful partnerships with music and entertainment. I also have my own IP. I produce and own the show Crown with Elliott Wilson, which is like the biggest interview show in the culture. And other stuff like a newsletter that goes out every week called Beats and Bites. And, we're basically a deal factory for music, technology, and brands.
So I'm posting the link to Beats and Bites in the comments. I suggest everybody sign up for this newsletter. It's basically, he aggregates some of the top posts from different websites and industry news that I think you guys need to know. So it's very useful. So I'm going to put that in the chat for you guys.
Thank you.
There we
Thanks
go.
a lot. I love this stuff. Beats and Bites every week. We're breaking down what you need to know about music, technology, and brands. I love this stuff. I'm a big music nerd. I love deals, and I'm basically aggregating and chronicling with a point of view each week everything you need to know if you're passionate or want to know more about the emergence of these kind of three intersections where I live.
Right. So the pivot from talent agency to working with brands, was that out of necessity because you felt like something was happening in the talent world and you just felt like, was it out of necessity or interest or both?
Well, look, there is an ability to, evolve or die, especially in the music and pop culture space. If you're not constantly reinventing yourself and eating your own lunch, so to speak, you are going to get got. The talent representation business does have a golden rule, which is a sad rule about it, but it's also just something you realize eventually that like it's not if you're going to be fired, it's when. And so as we would continue to lose clients or sign clients, that was the only thing people wanted to talk about, not the innovation, not the fact that we were helping Spotify launch in America and we were, partners with them in the college market. That what mattered was really about like who we signed and lost. And we were constantly under attack from the big agencies. We were constantly being poached. It was really hard to compete on a larger scale with what they could dangle in terms of carrots. Now, a lot of those things didn't end up being true, but if you're a 23-year-old, 24-year-old artist, and this is your livelihood, and you hear that like you can go on tour with Kanye, which was actually offered to one of my clients and never happened, but he said, would you want to go on tour with Kanye? Obviously, they have to take those opportunities. So talent representation was a very hard sport. It was a 24/7 on-call business. I was getting calls every weekend. At some points, we were having 300 shows a month, and I would be on call all weekend long. And it was very hard. You're just constantly under chase and attack, and it just was not something that I was loving doing over and over again. Once you break an artist and you play Coachella and you play Lollapalooza and you do the Live Nation, world tour deal and the AEG deal, and you work with all the promoters, it starts to feel like I was a waiter in a restaurant. And the bigger the artists get, the more you're leveraged and minimized as a role as an agent. I mean, how many artists do you really hear thanking their agent? It's not a thank you job. Like not even, especially in music, your agent, the booking agent's role just keeps getting minimized and minimized. And I just didn't feel like I was maximizing who I am as a person, my skills. And it just didn't feel like where I wanted to go. And so I needed to pivot. But I also really wanted to. And I took it on full-heartedly. I brought in a branding agency. I thought about where I wanted to go. I thought about what my strengths and weaknesses were. And it was really helpful. Right out of the gate, Mondelez came on board with Sour Patch Kids. And we built a program for them called The Patch, where we housed emerging artists. And the program ran 3 years and won a Clio, which is like the Oscars of advertising. And it was a great experience in terms of like, now all of a sudden I can be creative. I can stand out in front of my ideas. There's a lot of learnings and challenges, but all of a sudden we could be entrepreneurial. We launched Crown, which is like now the agents are representing me. And where we sit now, booking all of these different talent for all of these different brand activations, all of the agencies, they come visit me. They say hello. Like no longer, when you're on their like Public Enemy hit list, it is not a fun place to be. Now I work with all the agents, all the record labels. We're completely agnostic. We're on behalf of the client, and you sleep a lot better at night.
Yeah. No, I mean, your point about reinventing yourself, I mean, artists have to look at it. Obviously we encourage artists to look at themselves as a business because they are. I mean, they're tasked with the same thing. As an artist, you have to continuously reinvent yourself, adjust to different things that shock the industry, whether it's going from downloading to streaming or whatever the case may be. So just as an entrepreneur, you did at Nue Agency what we encourage artists to be on the look for and to prepare for, to be first movers, when changes happen. So many questions. Let's talk about Crown, because, I think that Crown is it's like your premium interview experience with the top stars, right? Who are some of the people that you've had, like Nicki, and who are some of the people that you had?
We did everybody from Lil Wayne's only long form interview around the Carter 5, and we rented the House of Blues in New Orleans. to, you know, Drake. We did Megan Thee Stallion recently. We've done 41 of them at this point. So everybody from Tyler the Creator to J. Cole, and it's really about like finding the artists and they're most hot and relevant, and giving them a platform to be with a trusted journalist who they know is not going to try and do gotcha media, who's tried and true. Elliot is really the GOAT when it comes to sitting down with these artists. He goes to college about everything that's going on about them. He really studies the craft and knows it. He's been there from from the magazine world to the blog world to now in the streaming era. And it's a long form interview where artists can truly tell their story. You end up on Jimmy Kimmel's couch for 3 minutes and it's like a funny quick hit. But this is a chance to really, it's like therapy on stage. It's inside the actor's studio with the biggest names in music. It's a chance to really show with your fans, in front of your fans, and then with millions of people tuned in after, what this experience that they're going through is like, and what they meant by this, and really share their story. And it's resonated beyond even what I thought. And we launched this thing really before like the whole podcast boom happened, and it's continued to reinvent itself to some extent. But it's we're 41 in, and it's a lot of fun, and it's hard to do in a pandemic, which is something we're working on trying to figure out right now. But we've had various partners, and we're looking at like how to also to grow this brand even beyond what it's been, because I feel like at this point now everybody's an interviewer, everybody's can have a Facebook Live or an IG Live, but there's more and more of a need and want for those kind of like really premium up-level magazine stories come to life. So I still feel like Crown works even in this day and age, 7 years later.
So it's I mean, prior to the pandemic, this is also like a ticketed event where there's an audience and they buy tickets and you guys typically sell them out every time, and what are the other components to distribution? Is it live streamed, or where does the video live, and how has that changed, if at all? How has like distribution or just the platform changed over the course of the 41 episodes?
Yeah, we've had different partners. So when we first did this, we couldn't even get a venue. We had to like take Highline Ballroom at midnight, because we did this with Tyler the Creator. We went up in like 24 hours, and he was just like, I'll do this for you. But we didn't really like, the venues were like, is he going to perform? No, he's just going to speak. And we saw that there was a big demand from fans, and we were able to bring in a production crew to shoot it. We were just going to kind of shoot it on our own. We were just doing it as a live event, but we shot it and we put it out with IAC, which is like Barry Diller's internet media company, and he had a division he was launching called Watch Loud, which was a hip hop channel. So we did the first couple with Watch Loud. And that was through IAC, and that was a YouTube page. Remember when YouTube was giving companies millions of dollars to launch YouTube channels? Mm-hmm. This one was one where they launched off the back of that, and they were able to kind of fund us to do these events. And after we did about 10 with Watch Loud, we moved over to linear, and we did a couple with MTV proper on MTV2. And we did some with BET, and we did some interesting stuff on VOD on BET. And so those are different formats, different shoots, different quality production, different edit counts. We were editing them down. And then Elliot moved over to Tidal. And even before that, we started talking to Tidal, and we did 11 with Tidal. The last recently 11 we shot with them, and they are really focused on the live stream space. I think they started to see that a big differentiator for Tidal was that like they could create these live events that people could go to, and then you could live stream it on the platform. And they started to see that like the live stream business was really winning for them. And so we had some of the most successful, most tuned in events ever on Tidal by doing these live streams. And so they're not so concerned about the edit or the past after. Like, yeah, sure, it lives VOD, but they really were focused on live stream. So we've let it take different iterations. Where it goes next is so interesting. And Elliot and I are basically in the war room trying to map out what these next steps are, because there are some interesting opportunities here on where it can go. And we're constantly, hearing from artists, especially as we're in this fourth quarter, that they're ready for their crown moments. So
nice.
We got some interesting stuff in the hopper.
Dope. So obviously, one of the things that has allowed you to pivot and even be in the industry so long is just your ability to build relationships. And what I'm constantly telling up and coming artists or young creators is to build with the people that shoulder to shoulder with. So given the fact that you got into the game early 20s, can you just talk to some of the relationships from people that you've had since then, or if there's a couple of examples of who they were when you met them and who they are now and how you guys may work together? Because I'm sure there's at least a few examples.
Well, first of all, I want to say everyone listen to Dame. He's a smart man. He cares. He's about the work. He's not cutting corners. He really is like a true example of a stand-up guy doing good things in this industry. And I think that he knows the power of relationships, and he knows that that a lot of this business is, especially in hard times, about who you know. And in good times, it's about who you want to do business with. So there is a lot to the people that you're coming up with. And those friends that you make when you're early on in your career and you're out every night and you're hustling, like that's a great time to really like bond with people and share these kind of moments. And these people that you're meeting early on, like this business is not that big. It really is a small, tight-knit community. And over time, it's a little bit of a conveyor belt. Like, people say the music business is like the craps table, and you want to be at the table when the dice are hot. It's a challenging at times and it's cutthroat at times, but it's also like if you work hard and you're hustling and you know good people and you want to actually genuinely care about helping people and adding value, opportunities are going to happen, right? And it's all about the parlay. So I think the name of the game, especially in my space, where like you want to know as many people as possible so you can be a dot connector where it makes sense. This brand needs this artist should be working with this brand. It's all about being able to like have access to information and ideas. And that is through relationships and through exchanging of knowledge and through being around creative people. So I think like new blood and new relationships is kind of like the life of the industry. And it's really these new artists is really what makes everybody so excited. But in a lot of ways, like Steve Lobel, I'm sure a lot of people know, said the coach outlasts the player in a lot of ways. It's hard to maintain as an artist in front and center for a long time, but behind the scenes, we can keep working with more artists, we can keep working with more campaigns, and you want to work with people that you like, and you want to work with people that have been successful with you. So, and you want to work with people that can do things that you can't. So I think you got to constantly be networking, meeting people, connecting, building, staying in touch, building your newsletter, staying top of mind, and then hopefully creating more luck for yourself by putting yourself in the right place at the right time and knowing what to do with it.
Nah, it's crucial. And, like you said, I think artists, you don't, if you build a fan base, it's a healthy community, you should have, a long career, but you know, should you have to pivot or you don't have the passion to create anymore, you know, if your network is vast, you know, you might be able to pivot into other areas of the industry, you know, whether it's management or you get a job at Spotify or what have you. Just want to have as many open doors as possible, and that goes with knowing the right people, treating people right, and just doing good business. The one of the things that you mentioned too is that I kind of know that you're a high energy guy. You're a dot connector. So I was gonna ask you how come you've never gotten into management, but I would assume the same reason that you never got into management is some of the same reason you left talent, the talent agency. But have you considered getting into management?
You know, there's something romantic about working with a hot artist. It's really like one of the most exciting things in the world. Everybody's taking your call, your phone's blowing up, you know, you're always in demand. You can kind of like, I think like the pecking order of being a hot manager is way even better than being a hot agent. But I feel like being a cold manager or a manager not representing a super successful artist is a very hard sport. And at least as an agent, you're making, you know, kill what you eat money. You can sell something, whereas an artist that's not making big moves at this point, it's very hard to sell. So I think part of the reason why I haven't managed an act is because it hasn't fallen in my lap. It's not necessarily exactly what I'd want to be doing. But if like somebody was like, do you want to manage this great act? I don't know. It would probably be pretty fun to be, you know, day in, day out in cahoots with a really creative, successful artist. So I don't rule it out. It definitely is like in a skill set capacity. I understand artists. I love them. I root for them. I fight for them, and I can make their crazy ideas come to life. But would I want to be a manager? No. I think that I'd way more be interested in partnering with an artist on a product or a campaign. It's way more appealing to me to be like entrepreneurial and really flex my marketing prowess and partner with an artist and launch something than be, you know, involved in the day-to-day of like, you know, making sure their flights are booked and making sure if they're cold, they've got a hoodie and making sure that like the monotony of kind of babysitting of what a manager really has to do to kind of like move an artist from A to B so that they can really focus on their craft and be empowered to do that is not necessarily where I think my skills are best served.
Right. So, I mean, obviously you're working with bigger brands, Sour Patch Kids, what have you, but do you have any advice for artists to position themselves for brand partnerships, whether it's eventually working with brands that you're working with, or maybe even some local brands? Do you have any advice for how to just position themselves to work with some of those brands or catch the attention of those brands?
Yeah, I think the first thing an artist needs to do is really understand their brand. What does their brand stand for? What does their fan base want from them? Who is their fan base? Where is their kind of overlap between their passion points, their craft, their audience, and their interests? And I think there's probably low-hanging fruit there once you can do the work internally on what your brand is doing and what your brand stands for. Then from there, it's about making content that really aligns with the brands you want to attract. I mean, there's platforms like Triller and TikTok that you can go viral. You can build audience. Like, they're selling brands. Like, at this point, people believe in the power of emerging artists. Their fans are way more rabid. Their fans are way more interested. You have a way deeper relationship early on with your fan base than you do as you grow and scale. So there's influencer world and the micro influencer world, you know, as proving that it's easier for artists to work with brands. I mean, I look, influencers are cool and all, but like influencers don't have the talent that musicians have. Musicians are really creators. They're touring the world. They're making an art, and they've got talent. It's not like they got like cute eyebrows or something, and like that's what they're known for. Not discrediting influencers, but musicians are influencers with talent. And so if you can take a lot of the learnings of what influencers are doing and kind of play on those platforms, but flex your skills as artists, brands are going to see you, because brands are there. Brands are on Instagram, brands are on Twitter, brands are on TikTok, brands are on Triller, and they're, all of those platforms are looking to harness relationships with talent that has fan bases that are active. So I think what you want to do is super serve your fans, understand yourself, and play in the sandboxes where the brands want to market.
Have you seen any artists be like intentional about the brand they want to attract and started creating content, maybe with a little product placement or some hashtags here and there, that eventually caught the eye of that brand? Or is it more often that it's just kind of like, you know, there's a viral video that didn't, not with that intention, like that dog face video? Like, I don't think, like with him skateboarding, like, I don't know if he was thinking, all right, if I skateboard with this ocean, with this cranberry juice, you know, it might go viral, then I might get the attention of the brand. Like, should artists be moving more intentionally, I guess is the question.
I mean, look, there's some serendipity, like what happened there, and then the ability to capitalize on it, sure. But you make your own luck, so to speak. You've got to be out there, you know, making content that makes sense. So I think it's definitely, you want to be as intentional as possible and then leave room for luck and serendipity. But I think that, yeah, you want to show, especially for a brand, they want to show that you've got that ability to really understand them and service them and be aligned with their values and help them be an extension of what they're trying to do. They don't want something to feel unsafe. They want something to feel like it's going to be a good bet for them. And so I think you want to be intentional. I think you want to, in some regards, fake it till you make it. Tag brands that you like. People don't know. Certain times you're getting paid, certain times you're getting products, certain times you're just doing it because you love it. Like, you don't know the intricacies of Travis Scott's deals. How much McDonald's paid versus how much Fortnite paid versus how much Nike paid. You know, it's stepping stones. And I think it's not necessarily only about the money. It's really about alignment. And so I think you want to be as intentional as possible so that you can create the abundance through alignment.
Right. So Bufo on the Beat asks, aren't brands looking primarily for folks with blue check marks? Is that true or not?
No, I think that, like, primarily, yes. Okay, so that statement is true, because blue check mark means they're not fake. They've been certified by the platforms. They've got a valid, you know, at least credibility in theory. I mean, most agencies that brands work on behalf of brands can also check to see where that blue check mark came from, if the account was acquired, if the fans were bought, if the audience is engaged. Like, there's more to it than the blue check mark is what I'm saying. But a blue check mark is like a bar that says, okay, this artist has been accredited in theory, allegedly, by the platform. So at least there's some form of accountability. You don't need that. What brands are looking for is expertise in a kind of category. Like, micro influencers are as popular as, you know, the big names in terms of volume of deals. So yeah, I mean, I think that having a blue check mark helps, but I don't think that that's like the criteria for what a brand is looking for.
Right. No, I think what artists really need to understand is the patience that's required to build some of these relationships, and how, you know, you might be putting out content and you might tag a brand or hashtag a brand or whatever, and you might put out several pieces of content before they even like the post or follow you, right? And that might be the start of like hooking them in. And as you put out more content, they might actually eventually respond to your direct message. They're like, okay, now you've opened up a dialogue. Okay, then later on down the line, maybe they send you some product, and they see what you do with that. And this process might be years. It could, I mean, sometimes it happens within days, sometimes within weeks, but oftentimes it could take a year or more to develop these relationships with brands. And as you like build that trust with them, they're willing to do a little bit more and a little bit more, and eventually you're getting paid a little something. Hopefully your fan base is growing, so it warrants that. And I just think that there's patience required. I just don't expect brands to drop a bunch of money on your lap, just because you hit them up one time. Even if you have a following, to be honest, like sometimes me knowing that, like I work with Big John now, he's got a hell of a following, and we'll do some things just to establish that relationship and build that trust and show them the engagement on a post that has their product in it. And then it's like, okay, you've seen what we're capable of doing. Let's have, a conversation. So have you seen, like, through your experience, have you had to be, patient while you build that trust and scale that relationship up to money?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's case by case. So that's why you just want to be, alert and look at what the opportunities are. Like sometimes you're talking to one brand and you're posting, and then a rival brand is watching what that brand is doing, or people that like that brand and think that's a conversion opportunity and it's worth more to them to pay that and to give you that money. So, yeah, I mean, I think that you got to kind of look at the marketplace, and you just got to be creating dope content and hope that people are going to check it out and brands are going to, yeah, I think you got to not just be strictly focused on the money, because if you're paid for play, so to speak, and you're posting just because a brand paid you, it looks corny anyway, and it's inauthentic, and people aren't going to, like, your fan base isn't going to trust you, and your credibility is going to be shot anyway. So I think you got to look at the brand game as the long game and not necessarily be chasing a fast check, but instead be chasing the dream and allow brands to follow you and enhance your mission.
Dope. So if you're watching on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, if you do have a question, you can put your question in the comments and we'll grab a few before we get out of here. And I know that we said we're going to save some of this conversation to a potential podcast episode, but you did tweet that being indie is harder than ever right now. I'm not sure if those are your exact words. So just help me understand, like, where you were coming from with that tweet, because we might agree, like, when you get into it.
Well, I wasn't, when I said the tweet to Sherry, I wasn't necessarily just talking about in the artist side of things. I mean, I think in different landscapes and in a pandemic, in a world like this, it is a lot harder to be an indie. If you don't have the war chest and the financial backing to cover you, like now that 80%, let's say, of your money that was coming from touring is now on hold for the foreseeable future, then how are you affording to kind of like float? You've got to be innovative, you've got to be nimble, you got to be lean, but you also need the financial backing to be able to be like, don't compromise yourself chasing checks when you're covered in that regard. So I do think you're seeing it in journalism, you're seeing it in the indie music, like the live space, a lot of the indie promoters and the venue owners. It's very challenging to be indie right now, because if you don't have Live Nation's like war chest of money that can survive the 18 months or so that this pandemic is going to decimate the live space, it's going to be very hard to float. We're seeing it with restaurants. Like, yeah, I mean, McDonald's is going to be okay, but like your favorite mom and pop restaurant that lost 3 months, 6 months of revenue and is now running at 30% capacity, who's paying for that? So I think if you look at the independent space as a whole, We're going to see a lot of consolidation. But look at the agent world. The indie agents are actually, like, the big agencies are so compromised because they're so beholden to these investors and to return on investment and like going public, like that they're not able to deliver, and all of a sudden, like, it's a much less secure place. So we're seeing a lot of agents kind of reinventing the agency world and creating boutiques, and I think actually that's going to be better for artists working on the boutique side of things, and a reconglomeration eventually. But from an artist perspective, I do think that it is really challenging to be indie right now, and that's because you don't have the resources to really kind of get you through the fact that, like, we're all playing with one hand tied behind our back. It's
Right.
you know, we're all crippled in terms of what we do in a pandemic. There hasn't been a live show and none of that revenue. And sure, there's supplementary ways. There's live streams, there's, you know, virtual worlds, and there's tickets in those capacities, but those are like 10 cents on the dollar to what you were able to make as a viable touring act. So
Right.
all of a sudden, like, you're starved out, and record labels, their business model is affected, but not at all in the same capacity. People are streaming more than ever. There's more revenue in the kind of like their war chest than ever. So yeah, I think that their deals need to change, and I think the independent movement's extremely important. But I do think that, like, in a world like this, unfortunately, big bank takes little bank, and that's where it makes the indie, unless you're extremely resilient, not in the best position. You don't have the leverage.
Right. No, I mean, I just think that people are, I mean, of course, and we talk about this all the time on the MEC, is like the revenue mix of different artists, right? And the revenue mix is completely different across the board. So yeah, if you were heavily weighted towards touring, obviously you're in a tough position, you know, but I know a lot of artists where it wasn't the case. Of course, we would all prefer, you know, that revenue to keep coming in through touring. But I think there's now, with all the tools and resources we have, and I know a lot of artists that had like creative ideas on the side that they just didn't have time to execute. And now that they're not touring and on the road, actually just last night on Clubhouse, I was talking with an artist friend of mine named Propaganda, who secured a book deal. So I think I agree. I think I agree with you in a lot of ways. But if you're an independent artist with a community, you're gonna find a way to extract value. Like if you've built community, then there's gonna be a number of ways for you to continue to you know, drive revenue. And what's crazy is, like, we've seen the biggest merch months that we've ever seen during this pandemic. Like with the comedian that I managed, like I didn't expect that. I expected, you know, okay, it's a pandemic and we don't even push it that hard. You know, but we've done a few things in the merch, and I've talked to some other artists, and they've said the same thing. They're like, wow, yeah, we've been killing it in merch. And I'm not sure exactly what's driving that. I'm not sure if it's unemployment checks or whatever. But the merch has definitely stepped up this year. But you know, we would love touring to come back. So from that standpoint, you know, I think most independent artists that are touring, you know, not getting that money is tough. All right, so we have some more questions. Let's see. Shane asked, as a new startup, we have listed in our business plan to live and die by our brand. While building a brand, what is the most important aspect of communicating an indirect yet cohesive message to your audience?
Yeah, I think when you're building a brand, you really need to do the kind of like self-reflection. You need to try to understand what your brand stands for, what you want to communicate, and I think on top of that, you really need to figure out who your audience is, what your end result is, and kind of like build your message or your kind of brand deck around targeting that. I'm not like a brand builder. when it comes to that regard. Like there are branding agencies, and there are actually artist branding agencies. Julie Pilot, I don't know if you know her. She is affiliated with an amazing artist branding agency that can help you really understand who you are, what your strengths are, what your passion points are, and then you know it. It's just kind of pulling it out of you. And then all of a sudden, you just feel really clear about what you stand for and the opportunities you should be taking versus the opportunities you shouldn't be taking, so that you can basically attract the energy you want. There is something to like knowing who you are and calling that out into the universe, and then the universe bringing that to you, versus being a little scattered and just kind of chasing everything. You don't necessarily get what you want.
Right.
You might get what you need, but you don't get what you want. So I do think that there are books on it, or there are experts that can really help you build the full-on brand identity, and it's worth it.
Yeah, Shane, and I would also just, just the brands that you like and follow them more closely in terms of even some of the like smaller details and what they're doing to constantly, beat their branding home, and just the stuff that you see time and time again, whether it's the consistency and the colors and the formatting and the hashtags that they're using, the taglines that they're using. Like typically brands, it's like the same thing time and time again. You never forget it. They pound it into your head so much that eventually you just know what the brand's about. So I would just pay more attention to the brand that you already love and just watch the little things that they're doing. All right, cool. So let's do one more, and then Jesse is a busy man, so we're gonna let him go after that. I see a lot of comments, so I'm not. Let me see. More comments. I think I gotta go up. Here we go. Nope, that's another. Let me see. I'm from Sweden. It's not always successful for an artist to work with a specific big brand because it could hurt the artist's own brand if the big brand I think we get the gist of the question, but just ended kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you're doing things that aren't authentic or true to who you are, you look corny, and if your fans will smell that out, and you'll lose credibility. And once you fool them once, you could maybe get away with it, but once you start taking checks and you're selling the integrity of your message, I think, yes, it might just be a big brand, but if it's not aligned to who you are, then people aren't going to mess with you. And I think that ultimately fans will go listen to somebody else that is more truthful and true to themselves. So I definitely agree. It's not just a Sweden thing. I think there's a lot of small brands that can spend good money and really be able to be vehicles for your message, and vice versa. There's this day and age, these D2C emerging brands are even cooler than a lot of the big brands, and are quickly becoming the formidable players in the category. I don't know. Do you want to eat Oreos, or do you want to eat that really cool new cookie that's being mass produced by the savvy kind of hustlers that really understand the culture? And I think you want to align with these emerging brands.
Yeah, no.
Same way they should want to align with emerging artists.
Right. Have you seen it really have an actual impact on an artist, or is it just a few, like some of those day one fans that say, "Oh, you sold out"? So if there's an artist that came up independent, obviously you got those super tight relationships with the fans, and the fans, maybe once you do a McDonald's commercial or whatever, like some of the fans are gonna be like, "Oh, he sold out. I thought he was about the people," whatever. Have you actually seen that have an impact on any artist, or is that just a few fans that wanted control over the artist's career and is upset that you made a decision to start working with a bigger brand?
I think that it can hurt credibility. I'm trying to think of like a specific example. I mean, look, artist partnerships are just like they're crushing right now. More and more partnerships. You could be launching a freaking Jolly Rancher New Balance sneaker and it's on fire. You could have a Slack, Slack office Cole Haan sneaker and it's selling out. I don't know. For some reason, partnerships are really working right now more than ever. So that cross-pollination does help. But yeah, I mean, logically thinking, if somebody's selling you bullshit because they're getting paid, I would think that unless there's a way to craft like what Travis Scott and J Balvin have done with McDonald's was true to their brand, even if they're selling a not so healthy alternative to food, it's beneficial to who they are because of the way they're doing it with the merch and with the creative. So I don't think that like that is an example of it, but I'm trying to think of like when an artist, I'm sure the audience could probably even better refer it, but like when an artist clearly took a check and is not invested in the brand, and how could you start to trust that artist in the same way?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there probably is an example, but oftentimes I think artists pay too much attention to the loud minority of their fan base than the majority that's fine with a lot of decisions, as long as it's not completely ridiculous.
I'm with you on that. I mean, look, I don't know, like in an election cycle, or people taking the check to do business with a certain candidate, and like, is that, I don't know, but I mean, I guess that's maybe not inauthentic in the same way. They probably are aligned in some capacity.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, look, DJ Khaled could do every freaking commercial under the sun. So could MC Hammer, and like people just love it. Like, if he got paid, yeah.
Same with Snoop. I don't think Snoop has ever turned down an endorsement. It seems like he endorses it.
I don't think anybody judges him for it. Like, if he's in a Geico commercial or a Corona commercial, people aren't like, like he doesn't care about Corona. Oh, you're like, you know what? This is cool.
Right.
Good for Snoop. Get his money.
Well, Jesse, thank you, man. I know you're super busy, so I appreciate you joining us. Always a few gems when I talk to you. Do you want to let people know how they can find you on social media? I guess it's on the screen.
We got it on the screen. And I appreciate you, Dame, very much for having me. And I love the Music Entrepreneurial Club, the community. It's a great mission. I think that like this is what we love to do. I mean, I feel like we talk about it when we're not working. This is what we're hanging out doing. So I'm definitely a fan of the mission, and obviously me and you go way back, like way back. I think 9 years now, which is pretty awesome.
That. Yep.
And I always feel like our best one is just around the corner. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. It's like you could miss 99 balls in a row and hit one out of the park, and for the rest of your life be cemented as a genius. It really just takes one really clean swing and execution. So I'm a big fan of bringing the entrepreneurial and music worlds together, and that's what this club's really about. So thanks for having me, and you can stay locked, Jesse K on Instagram. And definitely the newsletter is kind of my platform. It's every week, and Dave put the link up on where you can sign up. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks for having me.
I'm gonna put it one more time. I definitely suggest you guys sign up for the newsletter. I know that there are a lot of platforms sharing information. This is a great way to get the kind of the best articles aggregated. It's super easy. Email sent right to you. Go through the articles. That's how I get. So yours and ASCAP's Daily Brief are my favorite. So
hey, that means a lot, because I know you got your finger on the pulse, and I know that you know what's up. So listen to the man over here.
Cool. All right, you guys got a session on Thursday with DJ Payne 1, and I think next week we're back with Dan Runcie, I think, is joining us again. So
whoa, that's a good one.
Have you talked with Dan yet from Trapital?
I have. I love him. He's really he's also doing the work, right? He's thinking, he's on the pulse, he's fully committed, and he's got a great perspective.
Yeah, I think he's, this is all about raising the quality of conversations in the music industry, and Dan is definitely contributing to that. So it's dope. I'm looking forward to it again. All right, everybody, have a wonderful week. It's gonna get crazy this week. Stay safe. And I'll see you guys next week. Peace.